it's time for Joystiq Streams. It does today. My name is Anthony John Agnello, Joystiq Community Manager, and we're doing a little bit of a special stream today because our own Xav de Matos, feature content director at Joystiq, has been playing Dark Souls 2 on PC. And this is, in Xav's opinion, the definitive version of Dark Souls 2, and it's going to come out in about 2 or 3 weeks, about a month after the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 version. And Xav, how has this been treating you?
Poorly, like most Dark Souls, or most Souls games. I've just been dying constantly, and it's been a lot of fun, actually. So, I mean, this is still preview code. This is not the final version of the game, but already there's some pretty big improvements. The textures look a lot cleaner. If you were to go up to things like, we have a comparison video, but if you go up to things like these walls, brick walls in the console version, you see that they look a little grittier, a little muddier, not so sharp. Here it's a lot sharper. The aliasing, for example, on the shadows looks fantastic, so the shadows move and respond very well. It's a very good looking game, but the primary thing that I think is important about the PC version is that the frame rate is pretty locked. It's about, Namco says it's going to be 60 frames a second when it comes out on April 25th for the PC version, whereas the console version is 30 frames per second. So you do see a little bit more consistent. In the console version, if you see a lot of dudes on screen or going to a very cramped area, you end up just getting a ton of slowdown. And I haven't experienced that yet.
So where are we here? You're at the beginning, yeah?
Yeah, this is the very beginning of the game. We passed over the tutorial zone, so when you start the game, you sort of are in rags and you walk up to a house, and these women tell you the story of who you are and what you're supposed to be doing, and they give you a human effigy, which you can use to turn human. Right now I am human because they turn you human in the very beginning of the game. And every time you die, you become a hollow, which is basically the undead. And when you die constantly as an undead, your health meter will start whittling away, and in order to regain all of that health, your maximum health, you have to become a human again. But if you're a human, you can be invaded by people who are playing online. So that makes things, it's a little bit of a risk-reward system.
So this is also not your first time through Dark Souls 2. You've been playing on the consoles quite a bit, yeah?
I actually waited for the PC version, so I haven't played it on the console at all. I, like a lot of people, we're hopefully or hoping PC version would be a solid port versus what happened with the original Dark Souls on PC, which was basically like the fans petitioned for it to be a thing. Namco was happy to do it, but they released a pretty shoddy port, very bare bones. It didn't even have resolution options, so it ran at I think it was like 1280 by 720 or something silly like that. So it ended up being a community member who created a fix for the game in order to give it some more graphical pops. Stuff that is in Dark Souls 2, but stuff that hasn't even made its way to Dark Souls 2, like better ambient occlusion, lighting, things like that. So it is so far it's a pretty solid release, and I'm already engaging people.
In your opinion, do you think that sort of all of these different visual upgrades that Namco has done in this version of Dark Souls 2, and that fans did for the first Dark Souls, does that change the way it plays? Is it just making it look nicer and making it easier on your eyes, or do all of these visual upgrades and frame rate upgrades change the way you interact with things?
I mean, it certainly does if you're in a scenario where you are being bombarded with enemies and then suddenly the frame rate drops, and a single frame drop can really mess you up if there's a stutter in the middle of a move and then all of a sudden you're getting attacked by a bunch of enemies, because it is a relentless game. I mean, it's a fairly difficult game. They've made a lot of those changes that I think make sense for this game. It's not the same engine. They said that they've sort of revamped this engine. So it does look a lot better. And the PC version, I think, looks pretty solid. It's not a remarkable upgrade from the console version, but it's a fairly solid version of the game so far. I'm pretty happy with what I've seen so far.
Well, we were saying in the pre-show that, like, From Software games typically look a little rough around the edges, and that's kind of part of their charm. These are not like the Ferraris of games. They look a little janky. They're a little strange, and that makes them cool. And when you were standing outside on that like seaside cliff, all I could think about was like, man, that is pretty From Software. Nicely done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great looking environment. I like the world that they craft. You asked me during the pre-show of when I mentioned, how your health whittles down as you die. Do they explain this to you? And I said, like, no. They're famous for not telling you a darn thing about any of these games when you start playing them.
So, Xav, back in the day, have you ever played any of the games that sort of inspired the Souls series for the original PlayStation called Kingsfield?
No.
Oh, man. All right. So, long before Dark Souls and long before Demon Souls, there were these action RPGs for PlayStation 1 and 2 called Kingsfield that were very much of the same thing, but they were more sort of traditional PC RPG-ish. Like a lot of collecting and a lot of like using menus and stuff. But it was the same premise. Like, we're not going to tell you a damn thing. Now go out there and try to survive where everything hates you.
No, I mean, that's basically what this franchise is, so... is that... I don't even... Who made that game? I don't even know.
From Software.
Really?
That was their thing back on the original PlayStation while they were making... Fauben says, what about Shadow Tower? Touche, Fauben. But yeah, their two big series on the original PlayStation were Kingsfield and the original Armored Core games. And much like From Software keeps pumping out the Souls games and Armored Core today, they were sort of functioning on the same premise. Armored Core for tinkering and Kingsfield for brutal medieval fantasy. There's a Stolen 73 wanted to know who you were fighting a moment ago.
Well, right now I'm just fighting some undead soldiers and doing a pretty poor job of it. This is the new character class where you are a double swordsman. I usually play as like a warrior, so I have a shield. I'm not really great about backing off of combat scenarios, which you really have to be if you don't have defense. And of course I'm getting shot by arrows because I don't want to fall off this cliff. So it's... Sorry, I'm just getting into a fight. Yeah, so these... there's a guy in the bottom of this pit. I just wanted to take care of this archer that I'm going to fight. And if you can kill him, he has a pretty solid sword that has electricity damage. It's funny to talk about this game like it's brand new, but it came out a month ago, so there are people who are very familiar with, obviously, what this version, or what this game has. And the actual PC version is no different from the console version. So there isn't going to be anything huge in it. It's not like when the PC version came out on for the original Dark Souls, it came with all the DLC. So I'm going to engage this guy, and I've never played him without a shield, so let's see how we do. Poorly is my guess, because that's usually how things go.
Quantum GQ is curious, speaking of, how the poorly goes, how is the difficulty in Dark Souls 2 so far in your experience compared to the first one?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's not crazy. Like in Dark Souls, I died at that first boss section a bunch. There's a giant boss that you face off against, and that was when I first had sort of a poor experience playing this game. So we talked about that a little bit beforehand. The starting zone in this is fairly simplistic. It's not. Oh crap, that was a bad idea. There's no major boss to first fight off in the tutorial. Oh, nope, no, no. Yeah, I don't know why I used the light gem as he was charging at me. That was a dumb idea. So, God, we should have a counter to see how many times I die and embarrass myself here.
Yeah, everyone in the chat, please keep count of how many times Xavs dies.
Let's do an over-under of 100. I mean, it's not even... See, the problem that I have with this game is that, you know, I played Dark Souls, the original Dark Souls, like crazy. Eventually loved the heck out of that game. But there's an element of patience that you need to have in order to be successful in this game, in this franchise, that I'm just typically not capable of. So I just like, oh, the guy's not attacking me, so let me just go attack. But really, like, you have to wait for his posture and and the way that he's walking around you, because there are there are multiple move sets that enemies have in this game, especially bosses. You'll fight a boss 3 or 4 times or more, and on the 10th try, you'll see a move that you've never seen before. Like, it mixes it up so much based on the scenario, and there are bosses that are like that in this. So in Demon Souls, there was also a boss that, you start off playing against. Oh, jeez. You start off playing against a boss, and
a giant glowing-eyed, like, ogre thing at the end of a hall, right? Right at the beginning of Demon Souls, isn't that the first thing that kills you?
And you can beat it. If you beat it, you end up seeing a cutscene where the red dragon, which you don't fight until like midway through the game, will just basically like stomps you. You're like, you beat this first boss and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I did it. I'm the greatest player in the world. And then it shows a cutscene of you just getting trounced. Like, you don't even get a chance to fight this thing because it's so ridiculous.
I love that, like, what the game is telling you there. Be like, no. You probably think you're great, but we're still going to kill you.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. So there is... but I like that about this game. I mean, like... So I I played this game originally, and I just couldn't get into it. I was dying every 5 seconds. I was getting upset about it. I was just like, who would want to play this? Like, what crazy people think that this is an entertaining experience? And it was a friend of mine who, people who listen to nerdy podcasts might recognize, Jan Trachtenberg, who's actually writing or directing the Y the Last Man movie, was explaining that the thing about it that they don't tell you, it sort of goes against all of the video game ideas that you have. Like, in video games, you think, like, well, I have to be successful. I have to win. I have to constantly be on top of everything and can never die, because that is what video games are. You're not supposed to die. But in these games, in From Software's games, the thing that I always thought was really fascinating when I understood it eventually was, it's okay to die. It's okay to lose souls. It's okay for these things to happen. Like, you do want to make sure that you are patient and have a plan and execute on that plan. And when you're fighting even base level enemies like these zombies, like that White Knight that I fought is not difficult. You can beat him in a couple seconds. But if you're impatient like I was, or if you make dumb mistakes and not understand things like the animation system, like, oh, it takes a few seconds for me to execute this particular move, so, and I'm about to transfer again, but if you don't execute on that patience, if you just make dumb moves that are instinct based, that you're going to die every single time. You're not going to be successful.
And everything in the game it's not just the enemies that are really after you. It's the world itself is treacherous and it's a labyrinth. It's a series of different mazes, and you need to get familiar with everything. Quantum GQ is saying he wants to know if every NPC in Dark Souls 2 is a scumbag or liar, like in Dark Souls 1.
I haven't freed anyone from any jail cells just yet. That was a big thing from Dark Souls 2 with that one character. But everyone seems to be cool right now.
It seems.
But that's sort of like the problem, right? Like, they all seem to be okay.
Xav, something that really interests me about Dark Souls 2, like, they kept talking early on about, oh, we're going to make this one a little bit easier, and then, you know, fans of the original sort of balked at that idea, like, we don't want it to be easy, and they said, oh, well, we don't really mean easy, we mean more accessible. And, you know, they've made not just obvious changes, but small changes, and I know that the controls are slightly different. So how do you feel like, I know that they changed jumping and stuff like that. Right. Do you feel like you have an easier time controlling the character in Dark Souls 2 than you did in 1, or does that make a difference?
I mean, well, it doesn't really affect me all that much because I actually immediately changed the controls. I don't like the, they mapped the, jump to the left stick. So you press in L3 basically, and that's how you jump. But I just changed it back to how it was in the original, just because I've grown familiar with that. It's a game of all those like small moments, and if your like sense memory is like, I have to do this immediately, and after playing for so long with Dark Souls a very specific way, changing even a little thing, it can be detrimental to your playthrough. Oh god, speaking of detrimental. Oh god! Okay. That's gonna happen a lot, me screaming out loud like a small child.
Well, that seems to be the point. You know, like, you were saying, like, Dan Trachtenberg's whole idea of, you know, it goes against all of your video game impulses. At the same time, it feeds into a very, very old school video game trick, which is it's constantly surprising you, and that surprise is thrilling. Like, you want that. You want it to be like, oh god, no!
Yeah.
Why is this happening?
And listen, I mean, there are moments in this game where I've gone through this zone a few times now, and on other playthroughs and different characters, just testing out people. And you get to a point where you're like, man, I'm just smoking all this. Like, I'm so used to it. Like this, that's why, you know, I got cocky. I just like used the life gem as he was running at me, like, oh, I'm invisible. I'm invincible. Nothing can happen to me. And then you die immediately, and you feel silly. But the thing that works out really differently with these games is, like, you very quickly learn that anything is out to get you. So yeah. A good example of it is just like dying in as simply as falling off of a ledge will kill you. And that's something that has happened to me many times. So yeah, I mean, like, it's just it's interesting. There are discussions about whether or not the game has just sort of has this weird reputation of being so difficult that it pushes people away. But I feel like over the last few years, my kind of gamer I have become is sort of changed in weird ways. So I play Dark Souls and Demon Souls. I play Arma now, which is a series
which is very patient.
You have to be very patient in that. I play EVE Online now, and like things that are just very strange experiences that are not your standard or typical fare for video games. Just because, like, it's a new kind of challenge, and that's what I think is really fascinating about a game like this.
Yeah, you know, like, I often think about why Dark Souls and Demon Souls before it, because Demon Souls, if Demon Souls hadn't been the success it was, Dark Souls just wouldn't have happened. But I've often thought about what it was about those two games that really connected with people. And I think that there is that hunger, a different sort of experience, you know? Like, gaming habits do change and evolve. And, like, you see it in yourself. Like, oh, well, now I want something a little bit less twitchy. a little bit less, instant satisfaction. I want to wait. I want to have to learn. And I think that's why people have responded to these so strongly. Like there's hunger for that slower sort of experience.
Mm.
And it's weird that you haven't seen Dark Souls be imitated in so many different ways. You're starting to see some of the multiplayer ideas filter into other things. You've spent some time with Watch Dogs,
Right.
and some of those, those parallel multiplayer experiences, where there's somebody doing one thing and they'll appear in your game. That sort of Dark Souls-ish idea shows up there, right?
A little bit. I mean, the thing that's interesting about that is because it's a single-player experience, oh, jeez, I just threw a bomb right in my face. And then I ended up behind him. Awesome. I need to bail out of here. So the thing that I find interesting about Watch Dogs is that because it's a single-player experience, you appear as just a regular NPC in people's games. And because it is about this one particular character that is in this world, right? Aiden, I can't remember his last name. Aiden something. So you don't have a sense of identity when you're online because no one can see what you look like. If someone invades me and they've been playing the game for countless hours, I'm going to know that they're good at the game because of what they're wearing, their gear. It sort of goes back to that horse armor thing of like, why would you spend money on horse armor when no one else will see it? It's just you that's ever going to experience that or it's ever going to see that in your game. It's not a multiplayer experience. So that's why I think that this is more of a unique scenario where you can invade people's worlds and they see who you are, and it is a battle. Like you can immediately recognize by looking at someone's character model, like, do I even have a chance in this scenario? In my experience, it never is that I have a chance in any scenario. But yeah.
So Xav, does your character have the ability to have power stance yet? Pontuz in the chat is requesting that we see power stance.
I don't think so.
No, I think this is a little bit too early, Pontuz. Lieberfart was just noticing that in the scale of things that seem to be borrowing a little bit of inspiration from Dark Souls, Capcom's PlayStation 4 game Deep Down.
Oh right.
Of some of that DNA. But nobody has really seen Deep Down playable yet. It's just videos and ideas at this point, right?
As far as I know, I mean, they haven't really shown it off. I know that it is in a game. People thought at one point that it was going to be, God, what is that? Dragon's Dogma?
Dragon's Dogma, yeah.
But it's apparently a brand new thing. It's not at all that same franchise.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. I mean, it looked fantastic. It looks like they're going after this Demon Souls, Dark Souls thing. I'm going to travel back to Majula because I just bought the key for the blacksmith so he can get to working. I damaged one of my weapons pretty early on in that first run, so I'm going to give him the key and then come back later and get that stuff repaired. Let me talk to him first.
I'm a black.
Alright, let's open this door for him.
Man, Xav, did you play Dragon's Dogma?
You know, I didn't because at the time it seemed really interesting to me, and then our review for it, Jordan, who worked for us before, when he reviewed it, he really didn't like it, and he made a pretty strong case for it not being a fun experience.
It's very strange.
But since then I've heard, like, it's actually really intricate. Like, the story is insane, and you know, I'm really interested in to see how that game turned out.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, the thing about Dragons, I would say it's definitely worth playing. And the thing that Dragon's Dogma shares with Demon Souls is, like, on the surface, it has a little bit of that same look. This sort of very drab, very staid medieval world, where you'll just, like, come across, like, gigantic monsters every now and again. There's, like, a lot of odd incidents that don't necessarily have narrative justification. But they play fundamentally differently from each other. Like, Dragon's Dogma ends up feeling a lot more like Devil May Cry And like,
Really?
oh yeah, it's very fast. It's very speedy, and it's all about like equipping, just a few specific special moves to your character, and then chaining them together and doing combos, which is like the opposite of the sort of methodical feel of Dark Souls. But what they really share is this sense of like bizarre mystery.
Huh.
Like when you're wandering around Dark Souls, you're like, what is this? Like, what is happening? Why did the world get like this? And Dragon's Dogma taps into that, and it's even more surreal because you're being followed around by, like, instead of hollows, there are these things called pawns. And they're AI, but other people's pawns that they, like, make. So it's like an AI companion that other players create can come in and help you in your game. And so it's like these automatons following you everywhere, and it's just spooky and bizarre. Definitely worth checking out.
I want to check it out. I mean, isn't there a new like expansion or something that just came out not too
There,
long ago?
there was an expansion. God, I want to. It's been a while now. I think that was last July or August, and it adds like a good 10, 15 hour campaign onto the main game, and you can get to it pretty early. Like there's this extra island that you go to that is like a subterranean labyrinth, and that makes up the bulk of the new stuff in the Dragon's Dogma expansion. Panoptics wants to know, is this a bandit starting build? It is not. It's a swordsman.
Yeah, this is the swordsman.
I was about to call him a sword master again, and I was like, that's not right.
No. There are archers all over the place over here, so I need to be careful. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go get an item that allows me to unlock the mansion. Be careful, there's a boulder that's going to pass right by here. That allows me to unlock this mansion, and inside there's a skeleton that I can fight, and a shard for my Estus flask, so I can have multiple gulps out of that thing. And I'm going to get the key from this guy who's like a cartographer. I'm going to skip over the dialogue and stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I really like the story in these games. It's very weird, it's very strange, and it's something that I really urge people to explore on their own and to read up on. Because it actually is pretty fascinating, the world that they've crafted here.
From Software is really good at that. They make a spooky, weird, cool place to hang out in a game. One of my favorite Xbox 360 exclusives is Ninja Blade. If you've ever played that,
God,
that's
yeah,
another.
that was them too?
That was also from
That
Software.
was like the
and-
QTE game before. Like that was
yeah,
that was like Azura's Wrath before Azura's Wrath, right?
yes, and so much campier even, like campier even than Asura's Wrath. But that's another one where like From Software just makes like there are places that seem familiar. You're like, oh, I've seen this genre crap before. I know all about this fantasy world, or like it's like ninja action sci-fi place, and then it gets weird super fast. They excel at that.
They're
uh,
weird. They're a weird
yeah.
dev, man, and I love every single thing about it. They're fantastic.
Yeah, like Armored Core. I don't know if you know this, Xav, but Armored Core, apparently, if you're a for real Armored Core player, the way you're supposed to hold the PlayStation controller when you play Armored Core is facing away from you.
What?
Oh yeah, I swear to God, this is the thing. You hold it like upside down, so that like the analog sticks are on the bottom, and you like use your pinky fingers and ring fingers to use
Oh no. Sorry.
use the analog sticks. No, it's totally.
I got stuck in a corner here and I couldn't swing one of my swords because it kept hitting the wall, so I had to switch the way that I was holding my sword there. I'm gonna try to collect some of these hidden items real quick, and then get to that skeleton.
Get to the skeleton.
So the only thing is, we're gonna stop before we get to the first boss. Because I don't want to ruin that for people. I don't want to ruin just sort of the look and the intro. One thing that's really cool about these games too, it's when you see a first boss, you get this really great intro movie that only plays the one time, because they know you're gonna die every 5 seconds. You don't want to watch this again. Like, it's pretty funny. So I don't want to really ruin that for people. I mean, generally the first boss in this game is considered to be the last giant. And I'm sure, like I said, the game's been out for a month, so people are familiar with it. But maybe you've held off. Maybe you haven't played the console version because you wanted to play this the PC version. I mean, that's what I did.
So if anyone in here is just joining us, today on Joystiq Streams, Xav de Matos is playing the PC version of Dark Souls 2. It is coming out on April 25th, 1 month after the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 version of the game, and it is markedly different. There have been some questions from latecomers about the frame rate. This is 60. The final version of this is going to be 60 frames per second. This is a preview build.
Yeah.
But we have noted quite a few visual improvements to the action, like all that fancy cloth.
So I've kind of sped through this zone pretty quickly, so I actually might, like, the next thing I really have to do is go after that first boss. So we might just go explore and die a lot. And I was thinking, because I'm not going to keep this build. I'm not a huge fan of the double swords. Maybe I'll get used to it a little bit later. But I thought maybe we could just go and start killing NPCs and see how the game changes. I've already leveled up, so I can't do like soul level 1 run, which was never my intention. But it'd be funny to maybe kill some NPCs. Oh gosh, actually there is a place that we can go before that too. But first, let's go into this mansion. So, hey, you haven't played this game, so you'll be interested to know this. And if Susan's watching, she'll be interested to know that there is an NPC that is a talking cat, and we're gonna go talk to a talking cat.
Awesome.
Here it is. Here she is.
Oh, undead, are we?
She sells some pretty good.
And one with a just about ready. Not exact. Well. Oh yes.
Yeah, it's just a talking cat. It's weird. But she sells some rings that this absorb HP from each defeated foe. That's a pretty good. The Ring of the Evil Eye. Every time you kill an enemy, you get HP.
Man, that is a big cat.
That is a giant cat, and it freaks me out every time because the first time I played it, she was sitting in this chair. The second time I played it, she was against this wall over here. Now she's on this table. And I'm just like, I walked in once and I was like, did I accidentally kill the cat? Because it's not anywhere where I was before. Also, there's a giant pit here that if I fell down, it'd kill me immediately.
If you fall down the pit, is there any way to retrieve the souls you would lose, or are they just gone?
Generally, they'll put the souls at the lip of the pit here. They won't put it in the bottom.
Gaia.
But if you die in a boss zone, it will be in that boss zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is sometimes not super fun. So this is a mansion. I guess it's the last giant's mansion because there's giant books here. And in the basement is a skeleton who, when I played it, wasn't too tough. But we'll see how we do with this. I also had a shield though, so we'll see how we do with this swordsman. I mean, have you decided whether or not this is something that you're considering doing again, or like?
Well, all right. So let me explain my background with this series. I just love From Software, and years ago, when Demon Souls was coming out, I knew that when Demon Souls was first coming out, it was going to ship in Hong Kong with full English. And the PlayStation 3 had no region lock, so you could just get the Asian version and play it, and it would be fine. And I was like, all right, this looks really cool. I love From Software. It looks weird as hell.
Yeah.
I'm in. And there was already starting to be some chatter on like NeoGAF and places like that about how weird this was and how hard it was. I was like, fine, I'm ready. I'm ready for something
My
different.
body is ready. Let's do it.
My body is ready. Get me in there. And thus began my like 2 week long journey to trying to beat the first boss
Oh gosh.
of
Yeah.
Demon Souls.
Demon Souls is rough. I mean, Demon Souls I think is way harder than Dark Souls. I think
And
that's
like, yeah, it was so hard, and like I finally got good enough that I could get to that first boss. Like there's that giant blob thing waiting inside the castle that's like covered with armored shells.
yeah.
And like it took me like the better part of an afternoon to even kill the thing. Like it took forever. And I was like, finally progress, real video game progress. I am moving forward. I have done something.
The
And
game
then-
is over. You just like put the controller down, take the disc out, put it in the box, put it on the shelf. I've defeated the game. It's really
well-
just the first boss.
So what happens after that first
that a
boss
shard? Here,
is you
light.
like a
How
giant, door opens, and then there's a huge bridge stretching out to another like section of the castle. And I was like, yeah, awesome giant bridge, and I could see like enemies, and I was like, I'm ready for all you and
Yeah.
your traps and your sword swipes. And I ran halfway across that thing. I was doing great, and then a dragon came out of nowhere and lit me on fire.
Yeah, it'll do that.
And I was like, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. To
You
hell
win
with
this
you,
round.
Demon Souls.
You
I
win this
played-
round, Demon Souls.
I wanted to write a letter to From Software and be like, here, From Software, this is my white
How
flag.
dare you?
I admit defeat, sir.
You just send them your disc back with an apology note. I'm sorry. Why did I play this game?
I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So yeah, that was it, man. I didn't look back. And when they announced Dark Souls, I was like, hey, world, whatever floats your boat, get in there and enjoy that. But I did my time. But everything I hear about Dark Souls, like a lot of people in the lead up to the release of Dark Souls 2 were far more liberal with talking about like the niceties and the spoiler stuff from Dark Souls.
Right.
And so now I've heard a lot more about what that game is actually like. And I mean, even something as simple as the bonfires. There's no bonfires in Demon Souls. There's just like that weird hub world that doesn't make any sense, and everyone there hates you. And
Yeah, you have to touch the stones to transport to. Yeah.
touch the stones? Why? So, like, knowing that there are these things in Dark Souls that are a little bit more explicitly structured makes me want to play that. And I think I will play Dark Souls rather than Dark Souls 2.
I'll be around.
Real? Oh, see, the Dark Souls 2. See, if the things you've identified about Demon Souls that you didn't like are things that some of them are back in Dark Souls 2, so you probably would be wise going to Dark Souls 1. This area sort of acts as the hub world. It is an open world, so you're not constantly transporting back to that hub. This is the hub world. Like, eventually, the old lady that... There was a bonfire that I lit after beating that White Knight. There's an old lady who has, like, a cartridge, like a big backpack on, who sells stuff, where I bought the key for the blacksmith's thing. After you talk to her and get her story, she disappears and she ends up in this zone.
Oh, all right.
Eventually, everyone ends up here, and this becomes the hub world for you. Like, there's an armor. There's a guy in this shed over here that sells armor. Actually, what I want to do is I want to cash in one of these mini souls that I have, so I can upgrade these. I'm sort of just going all out because I'm not going to keep these weapons. Like, it's unheard of for me to upgrade these like starting weapons, but I'm going to do it anyway. Actually, before I do that, we're going to go down in, I think it's this zone. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. Oh no, you know where it is? I know where it is. There's a second pretty powerful sword in this this area that's in the starting zone that's pretty that can really help you out if you're having a tough time. And I don't know, like I already noticed that the first powerful sword that I got from the White Knight didn't have great stats compared to what my character already had because he's the swordsman. But I'll show people where it is anyway. It's close to where that bonfire was I was just talking about. So in this bonfire, there's this lady here who sells stuff, and if you just talk to her and get her story, eventually she'll say that she's gonna go off and explore the world, and she just ends up in that zone. So we'll talk to her for a bit. Yeah, so she says hi to her and pick up and move on. So we're gonna go down this way.
I guess a question for the chat. If you guys were about to go in and play one of these games for the first time, would you play Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2? Talk amongst yourselves. Your opinion is very needed.
As far as I know, that there's no the connection to the games is like pretty tenuous.
Yeah, it's yeah, like there's no need for continuity.
Yeah.
Oh, Single and Love It has an interesting question. Do any classes have special items like the Thief Key?
Well, you select your gift when you select a class. It's not tied to a class. So my special gift I selected was the Petrified Something. And in the starting zone, there's a crow's nest that if you drop the item in, you get a randomized item. And the randomized item I got happened to be like one of the top tier items that you get, which is the Dragon's Hammer, which you need to have like I think 50 strength to even use it. So
how long does it take you to get to like 50 strength? Is that
that would depend on the class. I mean, if you pick the warrior or the knight, you start off with more strength than the swordsman. Like the swordsman, I think his starting strength is like a 4, and most of his starting stats are in dexterity. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on. Oh, I thought I got him from behind there. So yeah, I mean, then you just like focus your leveling on strength, so you can use that hammer. But I would assume by the time you get to level 50 strength, you probably find something that's better than the 300, I think, damage you get on that item.
Yeah. So I know that there is a new game plus.
Yeah.
Some new game plus action. How does that work in this?
I think you keep your stats, but none of the weapons and armor. But you do keep your special items. I haven't actually. I mean, I kind of purposely tried to avoid a lot of information about this game when it was coming out because I knew I wanted to play it so much. Oh my gosh, I just knocked over that. I have a feeling that knocking over these corpses is going to be a bad thing later, but we'll find out. But yeah, no, oh man, I saw a crazy video yesterday of someone beating the twin... I think they're like twin pursuers or something, which is like a crazy boss. You fight 2 of these bosses at the same time. He did it barehanded with new game. It was like new game plus or something. So the enemies are a lot more powerful. They take a lot less damage. They dole out way more damage. And he was fighting them barehanded and won without even getting hit once. And it's just like at that point, you should not be allowed to play video games anymore. Like you've achieved
video game nirvana at that point.
So
it's like it's all you have to do is that and beat 2-player Ikaruga on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the marks when you like. That's it. Quit. It's time to be. Can you go kill that thing that is belching fire at you?
I'm sure it's possible at some point, but as soon as I run up to it, it's just gonna spray me with fire, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
die. So I'm gonna avoid it. I did get that fire longsword, and I don't think actually I can use longswords in this class. Can I? No.
Zap, a couple of questions about the control setup using. Since the prompts are there, the assumption is you're using an Xbox 360 controller.
Yes.
Have you ever used a keyboard and mouse setup with Dark Souls?
The keyboard and mouse setup for the original Dark Souls was terrible, and it was one of
Yeah,
the
I can
things,
imagine.
one of the things they said they really wanted to work on. And it's different. It's better. I still don't think it's good enough for this kind of game. You sort of have to be on point at all times and like do quick sweeps of environments, and you know, I could not imagine myself playing this game with a mouse and keyboard. I'm not a huge fan of the mouse and keyboard controls. It's better, that's for sure. Just like a lot of the elements of the PC version, or this PC game is better than the first Dark Souls, but yeah, it's pretty rough. So I'm gonna end up right behind a dude. Oh god, right in front of a dude actually. I totally forgot that was a thing that happened. Oh god.
Zeph, Moses John 12 is asking if the preview version here has all the online functionality. People could invade you if they wanted to, right?
They could. I'm not human. I can turn human and see if we can get someone to invade. Oh my god, I just double-fisted punched that guy because I didn't have my sword equipped for some reason. That was awkward. Yeah, you totally can get invaded right now if we had someone kicking around online. I've been seeing a couple of ghosts, so I know people are certainly playing the game online.
Right. Yeah, you had that weird moment where a ghost showed could see
The full character model.
their full character model.
Yeah. So I want to get up to the top here, and we're gonna try to see. Like we have about 15 minutes left. I thought maybe we'd go to a zone that's way out of my league, and then we'll try to kill some NPCs or something. Real fun stuff.
That's the way to bring it home.
Yeah, you know, the game's about dying. I think I've died twice. That's no fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you have, for playing a character class that you've never played before, you have acquitted yourself very well.
I'm a little proud of myself. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't even have the right bows or the right weapons for this crap. Let's see if I have an item. I want to kind of take care of this guy up here first. Do I have any bombs? Yeah, that'll do. Oh god, no, that's not what I wanted to. I wanted to equip it, not use it. The menu system in this game is a lot cleaner than it used to be, but I'm like, why would you be able to use weapons in the inventory screen? It should give you an option to equip it, not actually use it. Like, who would go to the inventory screen to select a bomb to throw a bomb from the inventory? I don't know, it seems weird. Drop down. Alright, that's close enough for me. And... oh, God. Oh my goodness. I spoke too soon about me about dying. I didn't quite die, but I was messing up all kinds over there. Alright, let's stop messing around. We're gonna go over to one of those crazy zones and see if we can try to face off against one of those big Iron Knights. It's going to be entertaining because they're going to destroy me very quickly. Typically what I would do from here is go down to the boss area and try to go after the first boss, but we're gonna avoid the bosses in this playthrough.
Yeah, you know, two more weeks, people can get the
Seek the
the insane boss challenges
Yeah.
when the game is out.
So my strength right now
Or-
is 9, so in order to use that weapon I need a 50. And every time you use souls to... you use souls like currency to increase, to level up. Every time you use souls, the amount you need to level to the next level increases even further. So, right now I'm level 16. If you want to do soul level run 1, there's a character class that has like a dagger and no armor. He's just in underwear. It's pretty funny.
That's like the classic Resident Evil runs where people would just try to use the dagger and nothing else.
Crazy people.
Well,
Crazy.
the game would reward that. Like there were modes that you could unlock in Resident Evil 2 if you just used the dagger, which is essentially if you beat it in a certain amount of time, beat it again in a certain amount of time, beat it a third time in a certain amount of time, and only use the dagger and no healing items, you could play as a giant block of tofu.
Oh, yeah.
That is a real
man.
thing. See,
God,
now
it's
if
so
Dark
weird.
Souls 2, if Dark Souls 2 should allow you, like, you should be the giant talking cat if you do a level 1 run and finish it. Be like, fine, you win, be a giant cat.
Yep. That makes sense to me. I mean, that'd be a great incentive for internet meme lovers to play this video game.
Yeah, right? You'd lure in so many new players. Lifestorm 2, have these guys run into anyone online? We were just discussing that. We have
You know what?
not...
I'll use a human effigy right now and see if...
Yeah.
I'll turn human. Humanity restored. Here's my sweet beard. I love how when you're dead, your beard turns blonde. Just to emphasize, I guess, how dead your body has become.
Xav, Bjorn Dadwarf in the chat actually did the tofu thing back in the day in
Gosh.
Metal Gear.
You are our
Metal
new
Gear,
hero.
Resident Evil. That is impressive. That is really bold.
I couldn't even contemplate, like, and the thing is like when Resident Evil 1 came out, God, I want to say it was really the heyday of like America Online was on, but there was no like
Yeah,
there was no internet. You know, the internet that we know now didn't exist.
yeah.
So-
Like GameFAQs existed at that point,
Yeah,
but like
did it?
was,
Oh, okay.
it did exist, but it was super janky. Like the facts you would read, you would have to translate them essentially, because it wasn't always clear what the hell people were talking about.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Or you can go to Walden Books and copy everything out of the strategy guide. There you
So
go.
I am totally out of my league here, and I'm gonna fight this
Oh my god.
giant dude here.
It's nice that you can light a bonfire, like, next to him.
Well, I had to do that because he was already chasing me, and if you light the bonfire, then it resets the zone, so he went back to his starting position. Oh god. Oh my god.
Go get him, Zev!
I got him. So I've fallen off of this structure about 1,000,000 times. Which is always fun. So,
Wow,
for the
it
most
takes
part...
off, like, half your health.
Yeah, and this guy over here with the hammer is going to... Oh, I love, like, you can touch these blood stains and watch how people are dying like crazy. See, there's a lot of people playing the PC version because there are a bunch of blood stains in this one zone. So, typically when you reset a zone, all the enemies respawn, but there's some enemies that don't, and this guy with the hammer up here, who is a big pain, he is one of the ones that happens to not reset. So. Oh god. See, like... Oh! I knew he was gonna do that. Does that 3 swipe? You gotta get better at remembering sort of the animations of each of the characters of the enemies, because you're like, okay, this means he's going to do a three hit combo versus this, which means he's going to do 2 hits or like a sword swipe. Or there's a lot of like boss strategies for even the simplest characters. So I'm gonna travel back to the first bonfire. So I'm gonna try to kill
Try to kill some NPCs.
NPCs.
That's how to bring it. Bring it on home.
I feel like if I started, I was gonna say, I feel like if I started with the cat, people would hate me for the rest of my life. Like, so I'm not gonna kill the cat. I'm going to kill this one. Oh, she's not even fighting back. All right, I feel kind of crummy about this. Does she ever fight back, or is she just gonna? So what happens if I talk to her now? And she's totally cool with it. She's not even bummed out that I did it. That's terrible. All right, I'm gonna just kill. I feel this feels real weird. I'm gonna just do this because I want to see what.
Deeply disturbing.
This is super disturbing, especially since she's totally cool with it. She's not even bummed out. All right, so she's dead now. What does she drop? Aged feather. What is that? In a typical fashion for Dark Souls games, it's not gonna tell me junk. I think. Oh yeah, okay. Return to the last bonfire rested at. Can be used repeatedly. So yeah, this was like the infinite homeward bone. So I can no longer level up because she's the one who levels you up. But now I can return to the last bonfire I was at any point in the game. It's a pretty interesting option. All right, let's go kill the cat now.
On the cat killing note, everyone, we've just got a few minutes left, and before we sign off for the afternoon, we've got some very, very exciting stuff coming up. This weekend is PAX East, and most of the Joystiq crew is going to be at PAX East. Myself, Xav, managing editor Susan Arndt, editor-in-chief Ludwig Kitzman, our reviews content director Richard Mitchell, and our news content director Alexander Slawinski are all going to be in Boston. There are many, many, many panels we're going to be on that you can read about at joystiq.com. We have a post with our whole panel schedule. We are going to be doing all kinds of fun stuff on the show floor. Xav has lined up many, many awesome things that we're going to be talking about over the next few days. If you have enjoyed this stream, tune back in tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for something a little bit different. Our senior reporter, Jess Condit, is going to be playing Connect Sports Rivals on our stream. A game that, if you read Jess Condit's review of, she hates. She is not a fan. And she is going to show on the stream very much why she hates that game. She's going to be joined by Mike Suzik, who's going to be handling hosting duties while I am on a bus on my way to Boston. In the meantime, you can always check out Joystiq streams at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Every now and again, we like to do a little special something like we did today, and you can always find out when we're going to rock out the special one-offs by following us on Twitter. It's twitter.com/joystiq. Find us on Facebook, same thing, just put that / and joystick right at the end of facebook.com. You can find us on Google+. It's plus.google.com /+joystick. And yeah, please follow us here on Twitch because we love hanging out with you guys. Xav, how many of these poor NPCs have you slaughtered at this point?
So I got the cat for some reason doesn't have a health bar, so I guess you can't kill the cat. I was hitting it like a bunch and nothing happened. But I killed the guy who was up here by the monument that tells you how many people have died in your zone. I killed the blacksmith who gave me a hammer, and which I can't use, by the way. Great. And also I killed the woman that levels me up. So let's see what he gave me real quick before we say goodbye here. He gave me a ring of protection. Increases physical defense. So once you've engaged these NPCs, even though I haven't hit the bonfire, it's saved. Like, my game is, like, those 3 people now are gone. So I can no longer go to the blacksmith, who I think is the only blacksmith that I've seen in the game so far. I can no longer level up. So yeah, it's pretty bad. And I think for my final trick and our last trick, we're gonna try to jump down this massive pit.
Into the pit.
See if we can. Let me put on this ring. I'm gonna assume that this ring is gonna make me survive. I don't.
Only the immortal talking cat can survive the pit.
Oh. Yep. Died immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to end.
I think so. Thanks a lot, everyone, for watching our stream, and stay tuned for more, like Anthony said. And Anthony, just to answer your question, you can see that my souls are at the lip.
At the lip. Ah, I wish there was a way to spelunk to go get them. All right, everybody. We'll see ya tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll see you in Boston. Bye-bye, everyone.